In order to get the visual effect graph, you have to find it on the forums. You can either use the git clone command, or you can download it on the GitHub page directly. I like to download the zip file. Download anywhere and unpack, or find the repository folder once you download it via Git. In your folder, you should have several other folders and files, including the visual effect graph folder. These are your packages you need to import. Open a new project in Unity. We'll start importing them by going to Window and Package Manager. Once open, click the little plus, Add Package from Disk, and find your Render Pipeline's core package in the folder. Import the package.json. Wait for it to import, and you have it. My version is 4.1 preview. Then add the next package, the high definition render pipeline. After that, find the visual effect graph package and also add that. Done. Now we need to make sure that we work in the HD render pipeline. First, we'll go to Internal HD render pipeline, add additional light shadow data, and add additional camera data. This will add components to your camera and directional light. Next, we'll go to Project Settings, Graphics, and we need to assign a render pipeline asset. In order to do so, go to Assets, Create, Rendering, High Definition Render Pipeline Asset. Name it whatever you like. I like to call it HDRP. After you created it, just drag it into the field up there. When working in the HD render pipeline, you have to change your color settings to linear. Go to Project Settings, Player, Other Settings, and change from gamma to linear. Then also add a scene settings object from rendering scene settings, which will contain your skybox and other settings for the HD render pipeline. After that, create an empty game object, call it VFX if you like, and add the visual effect component to it. Or a faster way I've discovered, go to Visual Effect and then create the Visual Effect game object, which already contains the component. In the Visual Effect graph package, you'll find a template for the simple swarm example. Drag it into the field, and you'll see the following effect. To edit a visual effect, simply double-click the visual effect asset, and you'll find this window, which is similar to the shader graph if you're used to it. The visual effect graph works from top to bottom, and you'll start at the very top and work through each of the nodes to the bottom. So the first one here is spawn, with a constant spawn rate, currently set to 25,000 per second. Let's change it to 100, and you see there's less particles. Changing it will update on the fly. In the initialize group, you'll find there's several other blocks. In the capacity, you can control the limit of particles that can be alive at any point. Changing that to a high number will allow more particles, of course. The position sphere means that the particles will spawn in a sphere, and with the arc angle you can change the angle of the sphere. also change the center of the sphere. You can change the radius. The set lifetime random will set a random lifetime for each of the particles. Let's increase that. Maybe too much. The update group will constantly update the particle's position. By default, a vector field force is set. This is using a 3D texture to displace the particle's positions. You can again play around with these settings to see what happens. For example, move around the center. Or change the angle. You'll see the particles moving immediately. You can increase or decrease the intensity to get different effects. The drag coefficient makes the particles react more or less to the effect. Increasing it very high makes your particles swirl around very rapidly. The last one is your output. Here you can change settings such as the render mode or the blend mode. For this one, let's keep it additive. You can change the main texture if you like. You can change the size. You can change the size over lifetime on a certain axis. You can change it over a curve and see how that reacts. And lastly, you can also set the color and alpha over time using a gradient. Let's change the colors. And that is how you install the visual effect graph in Unity.